We are talking to Linda Jackson, CEO of Citroen, and they've just unveiled the C5 Aircross here, which is going to be the first offering in India. In fact, this also is the launch of the Citroen brand. So very, very important model. And clearly this model is going to define what the Citroen brand is, because it's really the product which does that. So in that sense, a very important brand to deliver the Citroen values.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I think it's very important that's why I wanted to launch this one. It's our latest model, it's our flagship, and it has two very key elements for us, which really embodies exactly what the Citroen brand is. The first one, it has a unique design, so it is a design that is not like anybody else's. It stands out, it's got the colour touches, etc., etc. So that's a unique design, and the second part is about comfort. And those two elements, design and comfort, are ultra important for Citroen, and they are absolutely right for every single model that we launch. Comfort in a very modern approach. So it talks about suspension. This has suspension technology. Seats. This has specific technology on the foam of the seats, but also air quality. Connectivity, very important for us in terms of having a big screen and in terms of storage space, etc., etc. So you're absolutely right. It's important for us to set the picture, set the story of where the brand, our brand Citroen, is globally and where we believe we should go in India. And of course, when we launch our next models after this one, which will be first one 2021 and subsequently every single year after that, we will make sure that the elements that we choose for design and comfort are obviously relevant to the Indian customer. And that's the sort of difference that we bring. We're not going to come to India with just a one product. In that sense, it's not going to be a European product, it's going to be obviously adapted to the Indian tastes.
Interesting, you said design and comfort. Design, of course, is a differentiator, but comfort sometimes comes at the cost of sportiness. There is a trade-off. So can we say that Citroen is not going to be a sporty brand and is going to be more on comfort?
I think that's a really good way to look at it. And I think, it's absolutely true. For me, I mean, in Europe, I launched this vehicle in January in Europe, and we call it the most comfortable SUV. That's its tagline. And for me, that's Citroen. So I'm not here to make very sporty vehicles. I'm here to make vehicles that are at the heart of a market, that are accessible to a certain level of people. But comfort for me is comfort when you sit in it, you feel at home, you feel comfortable. It's not about having a sporty drive. That's not Citroen.
And talking about the brand and establishing the brand, in Europe it's a mainstream brand. Do you think you have an opportunity in India to position the brand maybe a little above mainstream, because there's no history or legacy of the brand over here? And positioning it a bit mainstream might even give you better margins, and knowing PSA's focus on profitability, I'm sure that's crossed your mind.
Of course it's crossed my mind, and obviously I'm not going to reveal exactly where we're going to position the vehicle, and I love your question because it's leading me down that route. But no, you're absolutely right. We are a mainstream in Europe. But of course, mainstream can mean different things in different regions. And of course, what we want to do is get the best value for our brand. But that's also right for the customers, because we need to make sure that the price that we put this vehicle at is of course, accessible to customers, but also retains its value, so residual values afterwards are maintained. So you're absolutely right. Maybe in India we call it mainstream to premium, I don't know. That will be revealed when we launch it, but clearly what we're trying...
That would be an ambition, isn't it? Purely from the bottom line
Clearly what we're not going to do is come into this market with the lowest price in the market. Right. Because at the end of the day, as you quite rightly say, we want to be here for the long term. In order to be here for the long term, it's not about chasing market share, big volumes. It's about starting profitably and building up a customer base gradually as we do it. So of course what we want to do is get the best value in terms of a return on our vehicles. So we have to get that balance between accessibility and return. And obviously that's the key thing which will denote our positioning.
Right. Yeah. Well, we understand you've learned a lot from, let's say, the others' mistakes. In a way, would you say you've got a bit of a last mover advantage in that sense?
Well, I mean, everybody says, you're late to the market, but of course you do get the advantage of learning from everybody's mistakes. And we have. We've.
What are the mistakes?
Well, there are lots of mistakes. I mean, I think, let me say what we're going to do. And therefore it sort of answers what the mistakes were. I think the first thing is you have to have fresh product every year. You have to have fresh product, and that's why I'm launching this 2020, and every year 21, 22, 23, so on and so on, we'll have a new product, a new model coming to the market. So I'll be here every year launching a new model.
No, but more than new product, what's really critical and a lot of European manufacturers fall short is life cycle management.
Yes.
Because it's costly to do because unless you do it in India. So is life cycle management something you've figured out as well?
And it's life cycle management, which we also have introduced in Europe as well. So it's ultra important these days to be able to animate on a regular basis even vehicles that have been here for 2 years. So yes, that's absolutely in the plan. I think the other things that we've learned is in terms of coverage, and particularly in terms of service and quality. We have to get, obviously, the product quality absolutely right. There'll be the same levels of product quality as we have everywhere else in the world, but also we need to have the after-sales coverage, and I think that's an important factor that also we're looking at and making sure we will, because there's nothing worse than a customer buying a vehicle and then not knowing where to go with it. And I've heard, I understand, that's even more of a concern, obviously, when you've got an enormous country like India.
In fact, I wanted to touch on that point as well. Getting the product, the technology, that's the easy part. Getting the network, it gets more and more difficult the later you come because the good dealers have been mopped up. The cost of setting up dealerships are very high because of cost of real estate, all that, it gets much higher. And a lot of European OEMs have fallen because of the service, not so much of the product. Do you think this could be your biggest challenge and your biggest worry, in fact, because you're dealing with culture sometimes which you can't control?
I think, we're dealing in culture, you're absolutely right, which is why we've got an Indian team here that are going to be dealing with that. It's not people from Paris that are going to come in. I think the other way is that we're being extremely disruptive. So we're not talking about having many manufacturers have come in and have great big cathedrals, big large dealerships. What we want to do is very scalable. So, I presented what we have, for example, in many urban cities, which is a small, we call it La Maison Citroën, the Citroen home, which is, less than 150 square meters. So we want a representation that is scalable, and I think that's the first thing. So it's not big investments. We want to be pragmatic when we come in, and also we're offering selling online. I'm not saying that everybody's going to buy selling online, but we need to have that balance, and I think that's the key, is that you have, in terms of selling, you're scalable, you're pragmatic, you're going for a coverage, but you're making sure that you're not asking people to have big investments at the beginning.
Because you have just one model in any case.
You have one model and then you're building up. So you've got to be very pragmatic in your approach. And I think the next thing is, as I said before, is that linked with that, you need to make sure, how do you link with a partner to be able to cover the after sales?
And when do you start getting your dealerships ready? Is the work starting now?
So it's literally starting now. Today, not only did we launch this, but we're also launching our live tour, which is the tour that the local team will be doing around India, key areas they've identified where they think they should be, where we're going, taking a road show, if you like, taking whatever, the C5 Aircross, taking it and showing investors, potential investors, what the brand is, what it could mean, what our distribution strategy is, what a La Maison Citroën looks like, and that's going on from April till July, August time.
Wish you all the best, Linda.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.